Good afternoon, super friends, and welcome to the Wednesday, February 4th edition of the Sacred News and Weather. I will tell you that this is the third time that I am pressing record on this video. The first time I had a cat spring into my lap and scare the holy bejesus out of me. The second time I gave my greeting, good afternoon, super friends, and the next thing that happened was Our Lady of Perpetual Tree Work started up some sort of either chainsaw or circular saw, and my sliding glass door was open, and it was like, "Rrrr." And I only mention that because I like to take note. That happens with some frequency when I'm recording here, and I always like to take note of whether it has relevance to the message that I'm about to deliver. And today it does. So today I just want to say that sometimes the exterior world and that noise and what's happening around me doesn't resonate because I'm so deeply centered in what's happening here. But I think because of all that's happening in the world right now, all that's happening in our country, in the US anyway, I think that my nervous system is completely with the energy of that circular saw. Like on the inside right now, I'm like, "Rrrr." And I will also say that part of that too is that my asthma has been flaring. And so I've been taking nebulizer treatments, which like just brings my whole vibration up in not necessarily that elevated vibratory energy that we are seeking. So if I'm talking really fast or if I seem a little buzzy, it's probably the nebulizer. Just putting that disclaimer in there. Today's message comes it's rooted, well, that tracks. It is rooted in the root chakra. I was this morning co-leading the Red Thread Mystery School with my partner, my business partner, one of my dearest ones, Eden St. Clair, and we were introducing our cohort into the energy of the root chakra. And it feels so relevant for what's happening in the world right now that I did want to bring it here, but I'm going to try and bring it to you in a really like narrow, one directional place. There might be a few other threads of energy that come in just because I am tapping into the energy of this collective, and there are many, many of you here, some of whom I know and some of whom I don't. And in the red thread, we had an hour and a half to really meditate and unpack the root today. But for you, I'm going to try and go zhoop, all the way in. And the piece that I really want to bring forward about the root chakra, which is also on the tree of life, Malkhut, which is the kingdom. It is Shekhinah, which is the indwelling one. It is the portal into our human earthly form. It's the place where, if you can imagine that in the time before time, your soul, which I believe has lived numerous lifetimes, 50,000 lifetimes, 100,000 lifetimes before, choosing to come into this body, into this form, into this time and space, to be the person you are now, to evolve your soul in such a way that it grows, it heals, it evolves, and transmutes you into the version of itself it was meant to in this lifetime. I believe that if you're tuning in here, it's probably because you already have some inkling of knowledge that this is what is happening to you. You're probably waking up to the energy of the divine feminine, of Shekhinah, of Malkhut at the root. You're probably waking up to the calling of all is one, the oneness that exists here at our root chakra. And if you pull all of the muscles of your perineum in, you can feel into that place in your beingness, the place that I'm talking about right now. It is the portal, it is the gateway into that oneness, into the divine feminine, into that place that hums and thrums with both your internal, what I like to call the Garden of Eden. So I believe also that heaven is not anything outside of ourselves, that it actually exists inside within us. And it is the place where we either give into our fear, which then wilts that garden, or we come into a portal of remembrance, of a place where we remember the truth of who we are, the magic of who we are, the divinity that we are. And when we can remember that we are all divine beings, we begin to nourish and feed and grow and allow that garden that exists here in this root place a chance to grow and bloom and evolve into the soul form that we were meant to take, into our soul's work in the world. So that's just like a very like short and probably too fast description of what is happening at this place in your beingness. What I want to bring forward for us here is that all of our familial and tribal wounding and strengths live in this place. And given the Epstein files coming forward, given the rise of fascism, given all of the wars, all of the discord throughout our planet right now, this tribal piece is really being stimulated in not a delicious way in our beingness. So if you've been feeling some some discomfort, many of you, and came forward in the red thread this morning too, really want to pull the covers over your head and crawl into bed and collapse. And I think this is why I'm delivering this message, because this is not what we are meant to do right now. The divine feminine, this place in us, is a place of receptivity. It is a place of softness. It is a place of gentleness. It is a place of love, but it is not a place of collapsed love. We don't want this place in us to collapse. We don't want this place to come to the realization or the recognition that everything out there is, for all intents and purposes, fucked, and collapse and give in and be and just fall apart because the world is falling apart. Yes, things are coming apart. Things are coming apart because they are meant to be coming apart now, because they are no longer sustainable. And this place in our being, this place in our body, is reminding us the way in the of the ways that we are different and the ways that we are alike. And it's inviting us to choose what it is that we want more of and to release what we don't want to see more of, but not to release it from a place of disgust, of, ugh, I can't, but to release it from a place of loving acceptance, remembering that you're not loving the despair and the horror that's happening out there, but you are loving yourself well enough to know that you cannot give into it. You cannot collapse. We need you to continue to feed this place of remembrance. We need you to continue to feed this place in your being with light and not fear, because the fear will collapse it. And what the toxic patriarchy wants, what those in power who believe that in scarcity, who are living and embodying scarcity, what they want for us to do right now is to collapse, is to pull the covers over our head, is to quake in our beds and feel like there's nothing we can do. It's all over. The world is coming to an end. And I'm telling you now, that is not why you're here. That is not why you're listening to this right now. You're being invited to find your light within, to remember your divinity, to remember that we are all one. Their belief is that we are not united. We are not all one. Some of us have things and some of us don't, and it's better to have things, and it's better to really squash those lesser than and to really get grabby with power. Someone asked today in the container about like what to do and how to hold it. And I'll just share this with you. First of all, if you are someone who has endured any form of sexual trauma in your life, I just want to tell you to be so gentle with yourself right now. Even if you're not watching the news, even if you are, isolated and purposefully you've turned everything off, you're not going into social media, you're not listening to news, you can still feel the frequency of the toxicity that is out there around you in the world. And it is okay for you to continue to tune out and to be really gentle with yourself. But I'm going to urge you to not collapse, to do everything you can to stay in your power, to find your power here, and to stay in that place of love of self, and to remember that what is happening out there, that all of this is coming forward now because it is no longer sustainable. It is no longer possible for our planet to thrive with a whole bunch of people in power doing all sorts of sordid things in the name of power or aligning themselves with power. And this is what came up earlier. You know, someone brought up the question, like what do we do? How do we be? How do we hold this? And I was sitting with how I can personally hold it. And knowing that we're all one and we're all connected and we're all interrelated, even to those people, even to the people who are coming forward or being revealed now to have aligned themselves with Epstein, to have aligned themselves with pedophilia, to have aligned themselves with all sorts of sordid behavior that we thought that we would never have to experience in our lifetime. And I feel like that is part of what is happening at our root right now. When I was in junior high school and high school, our history teachers were telling us, this all happened before so that it never has to happen again. And I marched through life believing that fascism was defeated, and so we're never going to have to defeat it again. That these horrors happen in other places, but they don't happen here in the Western world. And here we are in the Western world, in present time, in modern times, and we are learning that the most abhorrent of the abhorrent is happening and has been happening. And that very famous people, celebrities, people who some of us believe, not all of us, but some of us like bought into, oh, they're special. They got to be where they are because they're special. And I'm not that special, but they're special. And now we're finding out that these special people are doing all of these horrible things, or we're doing all of these horrible things. How do we be with that? And I'm just going to share what came forward for me because perhaps it's going to be helpful for someone here in this group. But my feeling is that a lot of the men who, in their normal day-to-day lives, would be absolutely horrified by what was happening on Epstein Island, by what was happening in at these parties. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Men who had wives, who have children, who would read about such horrors and want nothing to do with it and like vomit at the thought of it. How did these men suddenly become aligned with someone like Jeffrey Epstein? How did some of these men find themselves at these parties and find themselves trying to make sense of what was happening? And women, by the way, also. How were the wives complicit? And I don't want to let the women off the hook here. The toxic patriarchy affects everyone. It affects men, it affects women, and it is embodied in men and women alike. And so just bringing that forward as well. How does it happen that someone sits like someone who would normally be horrified by the thought of any of the things happening there, suddenly they're at a party and they're part of it and they're partaking of it. How does that happen? And my feeling is, sorry, I just got a nudge. My feeling is that it happens because of that desire to feel powerful. When we don't feel powerful on the inside, when we are not radiating our own power, when we are not remembering our own divinity, we are seeking power sources outside of ourself. And so if you and your self-esteem is low, even if you're a very famous person and you're not feeling very good about yourself, and you suddenly get invited to be in the company of all of these very powerful, wealthy politicians and actors and foreign service agents, you suddenly get this invitation to be aligned with someone so powerful. It's like it's this piece of us when you don't feel and know your power on the inside that makes us seek power on the outside. And so, oh, Jeffrey Epstein invited me to Epstein Island. Of course I'm going to go. Look at me. I am now being invited into the circle of the elitist of the elite. And so I can sort of see, and I'm not justifying, by the way, but I can see how it could happen. And I say that because some of you who are following me are in the coaching industry. And I want you to think about the times that you have aligned yourself to powerful coaches, not necessarily because you believed in what they were doing or you even held the same value system as them, but because they are powerful and they're making lots of money and they're inviting you into some container and telling you that you can be that powerful. You can have that wealth. You can have this kind of experience if you align yourself with them. Can you just bring that scenario of I don't feel powerful in my own being. I don't feel like enough. And suddenly this person is inviting me into this very elite space. I can see so easily how it could happen. Again, I am not justifying any sort of horrors that were happening there, but I can see how it can happen. And just in the seeing how it could happen, it allows me to soften in this place, not love these people, not love what they did. It is, again, absolutely horrifying, but I can see how it was possible. And I can find those places in myself where I was invited to speak in a certain place or write for a certain book or show up in a certain way. And suddenly the power that was not generating from inside of myself gets ignited a little bit. And I'm like, oh, I'm being seen. I can align myself here and be more powerful. What we are being invited into is aligning ourselves in ourselves. So aligning our root, aligning our tribal chakra, aligning our familial energy with the energy of our own hearts and the energy of spirit, really coming into alignment from the root up, tuning that satellite dish that's here at your root up to your heart and allowing the two to connect so that even if you're feeling that energy of I cannot with what's going on out there, you can in here and you can stay in your own power. Now there's a car alarm going off. I don't know that you can hear it though. It's just going to be quiet to see if there's anything else that wants to come forward here. I know that I didn't give you my preamble today. I just kind of launched. I think that's a combination of golden milk latte and nebulizer. So I'll say this now, as with any message I deliver, take what resonates, leave the rest behind. These messages are timeless. So whether you're tuning in real time or coming and finding me later or later or later, know that there's likely going to be something in here for you. But if there isn't, go ahead and turn me off, leave me behind. If you did find something in this message, please, oh, please like and share and subscribe. Tell your friends. I will be talking more about the red thread in future podcasts because we're going to be opening an evening cohort this coming April. Right now, I have a morning cohort going, and we're going to be opening a 5 p.m. Pacific time slot for the red thread so that those in my worker bee community can come hang out with me. And we do more of this work here. We get really down and dirty and into the nitty gritty of each of the chakras, of each of the Sephirot, of the tree of life, of the sacraments. We get deep into the Kabbalah and we get deep into the mystery. And that's the whole point here, even at the root. It is looking into those places in your system where you almost feel like the way it resonates here in this place is if I don't go along with the tribe, I'm going to die. Like that is the fear that lives here at the root. If I am rejected by my tribe, I am going to die. If I don't accept my family's beliefs, I'm going to die. The strengths that live here are almost the very same thing. The strengths are in the unity. If we can recognize that we don't have to accept the laws of our family, the laws of our tribe. We don't have to go along with our tribal culture right now that is as toxic as it is. We are sovereign beings and we are, by design, meant to separate from our tribe in order to grow into our soul's purpose. But as we separate, we are not meant to separate in fear and in hatred. We are meant to separate in love and in unity, recognizing that just because this is not something that I accept as truth, I can see, I can understand, I can know, and I can find some thread of love because we are all interconnected, and what is in you is in me. And so I would, rather than rejecting, I'm going to offer myself love and offer love in whatever way we can to even that which we are rejecting. All right, I'm going to be done. Thank you so much. I will see you on Friday.